Hi, everyone. Welcome to Bookin' It, a monthly podcast brought to you by the Clarington Public Library. My name is Emma.
And I'm Jen.
And we are back for the month of February with more reading recommendations for you. What are we talking about this month, Jen?
Okay, so what I did is I found some romance novels. I've personally never really read romance novels, so I have an adult romance and a YA romance. So the first book I have is called The Amish Sweet Shop. So this is actually 3 novellas in one book. So the first novella is called The Sweetest Courtship, and it's by Emma Miller. So this book revolves around an Amish bachelor and expert candy maker named Jacob. So his mom wants him to find a wife, but also she wants him to have a helper in the sweet shop because she's getting older and she just wants to kind of do her own thing. So she's definitely a matchmaker. So she looks over the resumes for the job, and basically she's interviewing for a wife instead of a helper in the shop. But Jacob doesn't know this. So she hires Rose, a widow who lost her husband and son due to a buggy accident. Rose is a strong character and is able to stand up to Jacob and his cranky personality. The two characters eventually learn to work together at the candy store. I thought the plot was fun, and learning about the Amish culture was enlightening. It was a feel-good novella, and it was easy to read and fully engrossed me into the story of Jacob and Rose. It was a charming and relaxing read. And it was a lot different from what I normally read, but it was kind of nice. And it was a very quick read, like maybe 150 pages. Like it went by very quickly. So that was the first novella. The second novella in the book was called The Swedish Truth, and it's written by Laura Bradford. So all the authors' names are on the front cover. So this book, the main character is an Amish girl named Stella. Or sorry, not Stella, Sadie. The story takes place in the same area as the Swedish courtship. Sadie thinks she's destined to be a spinster, which is basically unmarried. She was horribly scarred from a barn fire years ago and does not feel beautiful and thinks family and friends and strangers can only see her scars. They don't think that they can see her true beauty. When someone secretly leaves her gifts, she believes they are playing a trick on her and making fun of her. She has built a wall around her heart and does not think anyone can see how beautiful she is on the inside. This book again had me rooting for the main character, and I could not wait to see if they had a happy ending. The story was a pleasure to read, and I did not want to put it down. And then the final book, or novella, was Nothing Tastes So Sweet by Mary Ellis. And it follows the main character, Hannah, and her husband, Daniel. They are looking forward to saving money to have a house, farm, and family. However, Daniel tragically passes away in an accident, and Hannah realizes she is pregnant. Just when she thinks her life is over, she meets Seth, an ex-Amish man who left the community due to false allegations against him. He dreams of opening a business in the community. Can Hannah and Seth work together to build a life? Have they been given a second chance? So after reading this collection of 3 Amish novellas, I must admit I enjoyed them. The writing style was good, the stories were wholesome, and while reading these books, they made me imagine a different way of life and transported you to the Amish community. They made you believe in love, family, and forgiveness. I would recommend this book to someone who just wants a book to immerse themselves into. So, the Amish Sweet Shop. We also have other Amish books that seem to be pretty popular with members and staff. So maybe you want to pick up a copy of this book or another Amish book. You never know what you might find at the Clarington Public Library.
I feel like we have to give a shout out to our coworker Robin, who loves all the Amish romance novels. If you guys out there want another Amish romance recommendation, hunt down Robin because she will have one for you.
Yes, she has read all the Amish books and her name is on a lot of them. Yeah. She seems to really enjoy them.
So Jen, out of those 3 stories, which one was your favorite? I'm curious.
I would say the first one.
First one?
Who was it? Oh, Jacob and Rose. Because Jacob was just really cranky. And I just wanted him to just be nicer to Rose because he was just cranky to everybody. Even people that went into his shop, he was cranky to.
Oh.
But they just knew it's like, that's just Jacob. He's just cranky. But his fudge was the best in town, so people still went there. And Rose kind of broke him down, and something happens in the book where she helps him out. I don't want to give that away, but it kind of brings them closer. And it was kind of nice that he let her into his circle.
Oh, that's really cute.
Yeah, it was a good book. I really enjoyed it.
So what do you have next for us for your Valentine's Day picks?
So my next book is actually a YA pick, and I would say it's a romance novel, and it's called 5 Feet Apart. So this book is a book about, it follows two teens who have the medical condition called cystic fibrosis. So a little side note about CF, it is a genetic disease that affects both the respiratory and digestive system. It significantly reduces the lifespan of those affected and limits their interactions with one another for fear of bacterial cross-infection. So that is important in this book because the characters both have CF and they have to stay 6 feet apart. But they call this book 5 Feet Apart because they want to challenge the nurses, and they want to think that they could be 5 feet apart when really they should be 6 feet apart. So basically the two characters that have CF have to build a relationship from a distance. So Stella is the main character, and she has always lived her life according to rules. She color coordinates her medications, live streams her treatments, and decorates her hospital room when she must stay for extended periods of time. She is waiting for a double lung transplant that will improve her quality of life when she meets Will, another teen who has cystic fibrosis. Will, however, is rebellious and disobedient and is tired of his mom dragging him to different hospitals searching for the best treatments. He just wants to live the typical life of a teenager. The book portrays the intense relationship between Stella and Will as they navigate their lives with cystic fibrosis. Will is close to 18 and just wants to be done with hospital visits, especially since he is infected with B. septicemia, a bacterial infection of the lungs. So he recently lost his spot on the lung transplant list. So he really doesn't care about the treatments anymore because he knows that he will never get better because he needs that lung transplant to get better. So he knows that he definitely cannot get close to Stella, or she will get the infection and lose her spot on the lung transplant list. So not only is their budding relationship haunted by the very real specter of early mortality, but they can't even hold hands or kiss, as teenagers would love to do. Alternating between the first-person point of view of both Stella and Will, the novel is mainly set in a children's hospital as their intimate relationship grows despite their inability to ever touch. So, I don't know. I thought this book was really, really good. It was really intense, and it showed the relationship of Stella and Will. And I don't know how they grew so close while staying so far apart from each other. And you're just definitely rooting for these two, and you just wanted them both to get better so they could just be like typical teenagers, but they just can't because they both had CF and they had to stay away from each other.
Yeah.
It was a really sad book, but I don't know, like you just wanted everything to work out.
Yeah, like bittersweet sort of.
Yeah, but it was a really good book, and I highly recommend it. And if you read the book, or if you don't want to read the book, you could also watch the movie because we have the movie 5 Feet Apart. It was a really, really good movie. I watched the movie as well, and I may have shed a tear or two in this movie. It was really good. I'm not going to give anything away, but these actors were really, really good as teens, and you definitely felt the love that they had for each other, and just the people that are so important to Stella, like she just loved with all her heart everyone around her. So it was definitely a good book.
Definitely an interesting concept for a romance too, to have that like physical restriction put on you.
Yes.
Sounds really interesting.
I highly recommend the book and the movie.
So those are two of your picks for Valentine's Day. Last time we did the podcast, Jen mentioned that she had never read a graphic novel. So I've made it my mission to get Jen to read a graphic novel. But before I get into like my Jen picks, I do have also a romance or a romantic graphic novel pick for the month of love, as you said. So my first recommendation is Snug by, I believe it is Katana Chetwynd is how you pronounce her name. So it's actually like a collection of short little comics, almost like what you would find in a newspaper. They're just sort of short and self-contained. They described it as a collection of comics about dating your best friend. Super cute. It has this really, as you can tell from the cover, this really simplistic art style. The author based it on her real life relationship, and she started just sort of drawing these comics as a hobby. And then her husband recommended that she post them online. So I think she started on Instagram, and she developed like this huge following from there. So they collected a whole bunch of those comics and some new content into this collection, which has a super cute name too. It's just like really warm and cozy, and it's all about all these like real life sort of scenarios. Let me see if I can find a good one here. Let's see. It's just like really sort of relatable content. Like this one's a good one because we just had like a huge snowstorm the other day. If you're watching this, we're recording this back in January after that humongous blizzard. I'm hoping February is a little bit nicer. But so this is a really cute example. So this one is just like you've got him sort of like walking through the snow, and it's really deep, and then she's just walking in his footprints behind him, and she goes, "Footprint stealer." And it's just like cute little comics like that. It does really remind me of like the funny pages in the newspaper. I always have like a soft spot for newspaper style strips because my parents were really into those when I was growing up. Like we have a lot of, my mom loves Ziggy. We have Ziggies all over the house. I don't even know how many of you will remember Ziggy out there. You know who Ziggy is, right, Jen? You don't know who Ziggy is? Maybe this is just my mother. You're not the first person who I've said like, oh yeah, I'm like, my mom really loves Ziggy, and they're like, I don't know who that is. But anyway, I really recommend this collection. It's a great way to like start off your morning. Like if you're just sitting having a cup of coffee, flip it open and read a couple, and gets your day off to a really nice start. So that's Snug. Now we're gonna get into the Jen picks.
I was just going to ask Snug.
Oh, yeah.
So the graphic novel, it's just really short. Like there's just like a few words per page. And you just kind of follow along with the pictures.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So this one in particular, like you'll have different panels. Excuse me, is what they call them. So like you'll just literally for these ones, you just read them left to right. So you have them here, and you kind of follow the word bubbles from the top to the bottom. But like this whole page here, that's one comic. So like for this one, this is like a really nice little self-contained read.
Yeah, so it would be very quick. It would be a quick read if you wanted to read something.
It's definitely a quick read. This one in particular is the sort of thing that's like good to pick up and then put down again sort of thing.
Okay.
Like if you, I don't know. I'm a really fidgety person, so I don't sit down and read for a long time. I'm like, pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. And this is great for that because like you're not going to lose your place in the plot. You're not going to sort of forget anything that's happened. They're just like snippets of life. It's a very slice of life. Yeah. So graphics vary. And the one we're going to talk about next actually is like complete opposite of this, where it's like a much longer piece. And it's actually pretty long for a single graphic, I think. Anyway, getting to that, because Jen loves thrillers and horror. Am I correct in saying this? Yes. Yeah. I set out to find some thriller and horror comics for Jen. I'm going to present two to you, and then I'm going to see if I've like hit the nail on the head enough that you're interested in reading one of these, and then maybe next month you can come back and tell me how it was. Okay. How good of a job I did. So the first one is called Delicacy by James Albin. So it is about these two brothers, Rowan and Tulip. Tulip, who actually goes by Danny, who live in the Scottish countryside with their eccentric, witchy mother. She's like really sort of esoteric, into like new age stuff, really distrusting of like city life, which clearly has had a big impact on her children. Rowan runs the family farm, while Danny is the cook at the local hotel in their small town. After their aunt and uncle suffer an unfortunate accident, the brothers inherit their old Victorian house outside of London and the estate that goes with it. With a much bigger property and so close to the city, the brothers decide to leave their small town behind and live out their dreams. Rowan wants to grow the farm of his dreams with all this new land that they have now, and Danny wants to open a fine dining establishment. So they sort of team up and they want to start this farm to table sort of business. But the story kind of turns dark after this. So Danny throws himself into the restaurant business. He's struggling. People sort of aren't coming. It's going so-so. The book talks a lot about how sort of like trends come and go, and he's sort of off trend by this point, until his brother discovers this big patch of mushrooms on the property. And the mushrooms are described as just like the most delicious thing you've ever had. So they start selling the mushrooms in the dishes at the restaurant, and then everybody comes in for these mushrooms, which they name after Rowan, the Rowan mushroom. However, the story turns dark, and the brothers are driven to the edge as the mushrooms become scarcer and scarcer, and as outside forces threaten their success. It's dark, it's gruesome, and it's funny all at the same time. It's sort of like a very darkly humorous comic. There's a lot of quirky and fun characters, which I know is something you're into, Jen, at least from the way I've heard you talk about the other books. Yeah. You're really character driven. So I think there's going to be a lot to latch onto. Like they hire this sort of ragtag team at first who are like ex-convicts and all sorts of quirky characters. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on in the background. The art style is really fun and loose with like these really fluid colors, and they make each environment feel distinct. So the farm feels really distinct and lush and green, especially compared to the restaurant, which is like a little bit more bleak with pops of like yellow and white instead. It also has like this narration between the panels, which isn't something you'll always see in graphics. So it feels a little bit more like a novel. The other thing I'll say about it on that note is that it's a really slow burn. Like the plot moves really slowly. It really sort of follows the intricacies of these two characters rather than being driven by the plot. But it has these huge twists and turns that like I could not predict where it was going. And it is on the longer side. It's about 300 pages, but I really encourage it. It had that thriller and suspense sort of vibe to it.
Okay.
So that's our first option. The second option, we're moving more onto the horror side of that one. So this one is called Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, who is a Canadian author, actually. I really like her stuff. I've seen her around on the internet before, and I've read some of her other books. So this one's a collection of 5 horror stories. They're short. They're all set. They're sort of like historically set, although they vary about which time frame they're set in. So there's a story of 3 girls left alone in the middle of winter who, one by one, start seeing a man in a wide-brimmed hat at their door at night. But he leaves no footprints in the snow. They start to go missing, and it's all just sort of surrounding this one little mystery about what is going on here. The next story is about a new bride who hears this terrible song coming up through the floorboards and through the walls at night, and it's sort of haunting her and driving her to the point of madness, and she sets out to figure out what's going on. And then there's a story about a charlatan who's claiming to be a psychic, and taking money to talk to people's dead relatives. but she seemingly slowly is driven mad, although there's something else going on beneath the surface. But my two favorite stories from this collection are The Nesting Place. So this is about an orphan who goes to live with her brother and his new wife in the countryside. It has this eerie quality and twists and turns that keep you on the edge of your seat. It's hard to talk about it in any more depth than that, without giving anything away. But I think it's one that you're really going to like. It definitely has that like horror quality to it, and it has like a strong sort of plot element going on as well. Definitely a lot of suspense along with horror. My absolute favorite one is His Face All Red. And in lieu of describing this one, I just want to read the first couple pages. Okay. His Face All Red. This man is not my brother. My brother has a cottage with a hawthorn tree and a lilac bush, and a plump young wife with starry eyes. My brother has a fine coat, a vest the color of moss, and a way with people that makes them trust him. This man has all these things, and my brother's face, his handsome face. But just last week, I killed my brother. I just saw your face at that one. So that one has like such a strong hook, and it's like a really classic story about jealousy, but it again has a lot of twists and turns. The narration really like kind of keeps you and draws you in. Yeah, and I really love her art style too. So they have a lot of like really sort of distinct color palettes. So this is the second story, and you see it kind of has like this monochromatic, but then she has these pops of color which you don't necessarily associate with horror. But like it's really effective the way that she uses them. And then this one is The Nesting Place, and it has sort of this more muted palette. So they each look very distinct, but the she uses color really well to portray emotion and tone. So that one is also really good. This one, compared to the other one I talked about, The Delicacy, is more like supernatural horror. Everything has this like uncanny kind of, it's more like ghost stories or fairy tale quality rather than like realistic drama. But it still has a really strong sense of like suspense and dread. I really associate dread with this author. She's really good at portraying that. So, Jen, out of those two, which one do you think sounds more like you?
Probably Through the Woods.
Probably Through the Woods? Okay.
And that one where you started talking about how he killed his brother, but he's describing his brother, and he's like, but I killed my brother. It's like, ooh, so this must be a ghost.
That one has like a really strong hook. That one's really great. I think that's the first story I ever read from her. Okay. And I really love it. So I'm going to hand over Through the Woods to Jen, and maybe you can tell me how it is next week. Perfect. Or next month, rather. That's it for the books. While we were talking about graphic novels, I wanted to do a bit of a resource spotlight. So you'll notice I didn't have a book for The Delicacy, but that is okay because I got it through Hoopla. So Hoopla is a media streaming service offered by the library. You set up an account and you link your card and you get 10 checkouts a month. It doesn't just have graphic novels. It also has books, music, audiobooks, movies, TV shows. I think like just tons of stuff. Kids content, adult content, how-to videos. There's so much on there. The nice thing about it is you are limited to 10 checkouts a month right now. I think it's usually 5, but because of COVID, we've given people a few extra ones. We know everybody's stuck inside right now. So take advantage of that. The nice thing is there's no waiting list. So for members who are like familiar with Libby, you'll know if somebody has a Libby book checked out, you got to wait for that book to come back before you can have it. Not with Hoopla. Anything that is there, you get instantly. I really love the graphic novel selection on Hoopla. They have a ton of graphic novels, stuff that like old stuff, new stuff. It's really awesome. And the app for their graphic novels is really cool as well. It has this action view that they offer. So you remember how we were talking about panels earlier versus pages? With the action view, you can like tap on a panel and just like zoom into it.
Okay.
So you can see all the details, and you can swipe through like panel by panel instead of reading like an entire page at a time, which on a smaller screen is really nice for some people. Their desktop comic viewer is really great too. So it does give you the panel view. But you also have this, like, it'll turn your mouse cursor into a little magnifying glass. So if you really want to see like the details in the illustrations, you can do that. I will say, like, a lot of people don't like reading off screens. I actually really loved, I read The Delicacy off my laptop screen. And it was actually really nice because it'll have these like 2-page spreads, and you can see like both pages like really big and nice and spread out, and there's not that sort of line in the middle. They also, I wanted to mention, Hoopla has started a graphic novel book club. So they feature one title per season, and they give you a bunch of resources to set up your own book club, basically. So they have reader reader discussion questions, and then Q&As with the author, and a whole bunch of cool content. They also like provide you with a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of similar titles that they recommend to whatever title that they're highlighting at the time. So you can basically, it'll tide you over until the next quarter when they introduce a new title with a spotlight. And the one that they're featuring right now at the time of recording is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is another graphic by a noted Canadian author and graphic novelist, Brian Lee O'Malley. I really like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That's another one they made into a movie, so people may recognize the title from Michael Cera, I think, played. Have you seen this one?
No.
This is another one for Jen to check out when she's done with Through the Woods, because Scott Pilgrim versus the World is really great too. I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Definitely check out the Hoopla graphic novel book club. So you can find that at theclub.hoopladigital.com/graphic novel. And I think that's it for us for this month. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content. We'll be back next month with a new episode.
Okay, well, happy reading, everyone. Bye.
Bye.